I was sent to guard her. The alien princess slept beside me instead. Lucas Hale had never expected his life to take him to the edge of the galaxy. He had joined the Space Security Corps because he liked routine, order, and a clear sense of purpose. He liked knowing that every day had rules, every mission had procedures, and every decision was predictable. Earth had been fine for that, but space was different. Out here, in the dimly lit corridors of the station orbiting the pale blue star, nothing felt predictable. He walked along the metal hallway, his boots echoing softly against the floor. The station was quiet at this hour, and the hum of the life support systems filled the silence. Lucas adjusted his uniform, feeling the slight stiffness in the fabric. It was a standard issue for security officers, meant for both protection and authority. He had worn it on many missions, but tonight it felt heavier than it had any right to be. He paused outside the door labeled Diplomatic Quarters. Inside, a single life form awaited him, but not a human. It was her, the alien princess. Lucas had read all the reports before leaving Earth. The papers were full of descriptions, cultural notes, even warnings about her species, emotional sensitivity. But reading about someone was very different from standing in front of them. The door hissed as it opened, and Lucas stepped inside. The room was softly lit by pale blue lights that seemed to float without visible sources. The walls had strange, organic curves, almost like the room itself was alive. And there, seated on a low platform that seemed more like a resting place than a bed, was Elira. She did not rise as he entered. She looked at him with eyes that were too large for her face, deep and golden, shining in the soft light. "You are Lucas Hale," she said. Her voice was soft, musical, but carried a weight that made him straighten instinctively. "I was expecting someone taller," Lucas blinked. He had expected cautious formality, maybe suspicion, maybe fear, not a comment about his height. He shifted uncomfortably. "I am here to guard you," he said carefully. "That is my job. Your safety is my responsibility." Elira tilted her head, studying him. She had skin that shimmered faintly like sunlight on water, and hair that fell in a pale silver cascade over her shoulders. She was elegant, but not in the human sense. Her movements were fluid, almost floating, yet controlled. Every small gesture seemed intentional, as if she was constantly aware of the space around her. "I do not need guarding," she said, though her gaze did not waver from him. "Humans are fragile. You will tire. You will falter. Are you prepared for that?" Lucas swallowed hard. The words were not meant to be threatening, but they made him uneasy. He had been trained to protect against weapons, against physical danger, but the idea of protecting someone who doubted him before he even tried was unfamiliar. "I will not falter," he said. "I have trained for situations like this. You can trust me." For a moment she said nothing. Lucas felt the weight of her gaze, like she was measuring his soul. Then she stood, moving closer. The soft lights reflected off her skin, and Lucas realized she was closer than he expected, closer than protocol might allow. Her expression was calm, almost unreadable. "I do not fully trust humans," she admitted quietly. "But I will trust you, Lucas Hale, because the Council insists on it. For now, that is enough." Lucas nodded, unsure what to say. He wanted to speak, to assure her again, but the words felt small in the face of her presence. He could feel the tension in the room, a mixture of alien formality and quiet curiosity. He realized that this mission was not just about guarding her body. It was about understanding her, about being present without being intrusive. And that was a challenge unlike anything he had faced. The hours passed slowly. Lucas sat in a chair near the platform, observing her. She did not ask for conversation, though she occasionally spoke, asking questions about Earth, about humans, about his life before the station. He answered simply, carefully. He avoided embellishment, sticking to facts, because he had learned that embellishment sometimes invited misunderstanding. "You like Earth," she said suddenly, as if recalling something. but you leave it behind for this station." "I do," Lucas said. "I like order, I like knowing what comes next, and Earth is home, but this is duty. Protecting you is part of my duty." She considered that, then smiled faintly. The smile was small, but it softened her features. It was almost human, but not quite. "Humans are strange," she said. "You carry home with you, even in the emptiness of space. Perhaps that is why you can endure." Lucas felt a flicker of surprise. No other alien had ever commented on such a thing. Most of them viewed humans as fragile, simple, and short-lived. Few ever saw the persistence, the stubborn will that allowed them to survive in impossible conditions. Elira, however, seemed to notice. As the station's artificial night approached, Lucas felt a strange sense of unease. The corridors outside were quiet, almost too quiet. Reports had mentioned potential political unrest among alien factions, but Lucas had assumed they would not act openly. Tonight, however, he felt eyes on the station, the sense of being watched. It was instinct, honed from years of security training. He checked his weapons, ran through the protocols in his mind, and prepared himself for the long hours ahead. Elira, meanwhile, moved to recline on the platform. She looked at Lucas, as if considering whether he would leave or stay. "You will not sleep?" she asked, though it sounded more like a statement than a question. "I will remain alert," Lucas said. "My job is to protect you." She nodded, then settled down in a way that made her appear smaller, yet more commanding at the same time. Lucas could not stop noticing how different she was from any human he had ever met. There was a confidence in her stillness, a presence that made him hyper-aware of every sound, every movement. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that guarding her was not just about being ready for attacks. It was about reading the room, reading her, and being ready for the unexpected. Minutes passed like hours. Lucas found himself watching her, noticing the small details, the way her eyes caught the light, the subtle shifts in her posture, the calmness that seemed almost unnatural. He reminded himself to stay professional. He reminded himself that she was the princess, that he was the guard, and that anything beyond that could be dangerous. Then, as the artificial night deepened, something unexpected happened. Elira moved closer. Lucas froze, unsure what was happening. She did not speak. She did not gesture. She simply lay down on the platform, positioning herself near him. It was a strange, intimate gesture, one that went against everything he had expected in this mission. "This is how my people show trust," she said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. "To be near someone, even in sleep, is to show confidence. You are my guard, you may stay." Lucas's heart raced. This was not part of the protocol. He had trained for every emergency, every breach, every attack, but not this. He felt an awkwardness, a tension he could not name. He nodded stiffly. "I understand. I will remain alert," he said. She closed her eyes, and Lucas watched for any sign of movement. He could feel her breathing, steady and calm. He could feel the weight of responsibility in a way that went beyond physical guarding. It was emotional, psychological, and far more complicated than he had imagined. He realized he had entered a mission that would test not only his skills, but his understanding of trust, loyalty, and human endurance. The hours passed slowly. Lucas remained awake, listening to the quiet sounds of the station and to Elira's even breathing. He thought about Earth, about the simplicity of his old life, and about the strange path that had led him here. He thought about the galaxy, about alien politics, about the danger that lurked unseen. And he thought about the princess beside him, whose trust he now carried in silence. He did not sleep. He could not. And as the first pale light of artificial dawn touched the platform, Lucas realized something. This mission would not be simple. It would not be routine. It would not follow the rules he had learned. And yet he felt a strange determination. He would protect her. He would endure. He would learn what it meant to be trusted by someone so unlike himself. And he knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The morning light in the station was pale and quiet. Lucas had not slept at all, but he did not feel tired in the usual way. His body ached slightly, but his mind was alert, focused on the princess. Alira had already awakened, sitting upright on the platform, her silver hair catching the faint light. She looked at him calmly, as if expecting him to report on the night. "Did you sleep?" she asked. The tone was not curious, it was more like an observation. Lucas shook his head. "No, I stayed alert. You are my responsibility." Alira nodded slowly. "Humans are strange. You do not sleep, but you endure. It is admirable." Lucas felt a small warmth at her words, though he reminded himself not to let it show. Admiration from an alien princess was unusual, and showing weakness could be dangerous. "Thank you," he said carefully. "I will continue to stay alert. Nothing will reach you on my watch." She studied him for a moment. Then she spoke in a quieter tone, almost to herself. "I wonder if humans always endure so much. It seems to come naturally to you. Even when your body is tired, you remain awake. Even when your mind wants to wander, it stays sharp." Lucas tilted his head, curious. "I think we endure because we have to, because life demands it. Maybe your species does not understand that. Maybe you expect weakness because you do not see what we carry inside." Alira looked at him, golden eyes wide. She was quiet for a long moment, as if considering his words. Then she spoke again. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we imagined. I will need to observe more. And perhaps, Lucas Hale, you will teach me." Lucas felt a small knot of tension in his stomach. Teaching an alien princess about human endurance was far beyond his training, but he nodded anyway. "If it will help you understand, I will try." The day passed slowly. Lucas patrolled the station carefully, checking the security cameras and the corridors. He noticed small anomalies, lights flickering briefly, slight shifts in the movement patterns of the station's crew. Nothing obvious, but enough to make him alert. Something was not right. Alira spent the day near him, asking questions. She asked about Earth, about the way humans lived, about the things that made life precious. She asked about small details like the taste of food, the feel of rain, and the sound of music. Lucas answered simply, trying to keep the explanations short, but she listened intently, as if every word carried meaning. "Why do humans fight wars?" she asked suddenly. Her tone was calm, but the question carried weight. Lucas paused. It was not an easy question. He wanted to answer honestly but simply. "We fight wars because we protect what we love. Sometimes we fight because others take what is ours. Sometimes we fight because it is the only way to survive. It is not simple, and it is not always right, but it is human." Alira tilted her head. "Your species values survival above all else, yet you also value life. It seems contradictory." Lucas smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but that is humanity. We endure, we protect, and we live with the contradictions. It is how we survive." She nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "I am beginning to understand, and yet I wonder what makes you trust me. You do not know my species. You do not know the council. You do not know what dangers lie ahead." Lucas looked at her steadily. "I am trained to protect. Trust is part of the mission. But more than that, sometimes you just know who needs help. Sometimes you just know who deserves protection." Alira's eyes softened slightly. She seemed to consider his words deeply, then stood and walked toward the window. She looked out at the stars, the endless stretch of black and pale blue. "The galaxy is large," she said quietly. "So many dangers, so many choices. How can humans endure in such vast emptiness?" Lucas followed her gaze, watching the stars. "We endure because we must. And because we care. Sometimes that is enough to survive." They were quiet for a while, listening to the faint hum of the station. Lucas kept his hand near his side, ready, but Alira did not move threateningly. She seemed calm, almost at ease in his presence. It was a strange feeling, guarding someone who was so different from him, yet who trusted him enough to be near. Later, Lucas noticed movement in the station's corridors. Small shadows, fleeting glimpses of figures that seemed out of place. He tensed immediately. He had learned to recognize danger by instinct, and something was off. He checked the cameras, noting that a few areas showed unusual patterns. Someone or something was moving through restricted zones. "What is it?" Alira asked, noticing his alertness. "Possible intruders," Lucas said. "I need to check." She tilted her head, observing him. "Humans act quickly. You do not hesitate. That is impressive." Lucas moved carefully through the corridors, checking doors and scanning the areas. He saw the faint shadows again near the engineering section. He approached slowly, weapon ready. The shadows moved fast, too fast for ordinary crew members. His pulse quickened, but he forced himself to stay calm. Suddenly, one of the intruders stepped into the light. It was not human. The figure was small, humanoid, but clearly alien, with features sharp and angular. It carried a device in its hand that glowed faintly. Lucas raised his weapon. "Halt," he commanded. "Identify yourself." The alien froze for a moment, then darted down the corridor. Lucas ran after it, heart pounding. The corridors twisted and turned, a maze of metal and light. He followed, instinct-trained reflexes guiding him. The alien turned sharply, and Lucas saw the device in its hand pulse with a strange energy. He knew that if it activated, the consequences could be deadly. He leapt forward, tackling the alien to the ground. They struggled briefly, Lucas straining to hold the figure down. The alien hissed, its voice harsh and unhuman. Lucas kept his focus, using strength and training to subdue it until backup arrived. The station's security crew rushed in moments later, securing the intruder. Lucas wiped sweat from his forehead, breathing heavily. He realized how close the threat had been, how quickly it could have escalated. He turned back to check on Alira, worried she might have witnessed the struggle. She was standing near the corridor, calm but observing closely. "You handled that well," she said quietly. "Humans are more capable than we thought. I see now why you endure, why you trust, why you protect." Lucas nodded, though he felt the tension still in his muscles. "It is my job, and it is my choice. Protecting you is important. Not just because it is duty, but because someone has to do it." Alira studied him silently, then reached out a hand. It was a strange gesture, but she did not touch him fully, only extended it as if testing the idea of trust. Lucas hesitated, then allowed her to place her hand lightly on his arm. The contact was brief but carried meaning. It was not intimacy in a human sense, but it was trust and recognition and understanding all at once. "I am beginning to respect humans," she said softly. "Your endurance, your focus, your care, it is unlike what we expected. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated your species." Lucas felt a small smile on his face. It was not relief, not pride, just the acknowledgement that what he did mattered. He realized that this mission was changing both of them. It was not just about guarding a princess or following orders. It was about teaching each other, understanding each other, and facing dangers together. As the artificial night returned, Lucas set up a watch near the platform. Alira lay down, resting her head lightly on the soft surface. She did not ask him to come close, but she did not push him away. Lucas remained alert, scanning the station, listening for the faintest sounds. Every movement, every shadow, every whisper of the station could mean danger. He thought about the intruder, about the hidden threats that might still lurk within the station. He thought about Alira, about her trust, about the strange bond that was forming between them. He knew the days ahead would be difficult. He knew that more challenges would come. But he also knew something else. He was ready. He had never been more ready in his life. Alira stirred slightly, sensing his watchfulness. She looked at him, golden eyes meeting his. "Do not tire yourself," she said. "Your endurance is remarkable, but you are human. Even humans have limits." Lucas shook his head. "I will not tire, not tonight, not while you are here. Your safety is my choice, and my choice cannot falter." She considered him for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes, trusting him to remain vigilant. Lucas stayed awake, alert and ready, thinking of Earth, thinking of the station, thinking of the galaxy, and of the mission that had become far more complicated than he had ever imagined. The quiet hum of the station continued through the night. Lucas watched, waited, and endured. For he knew that tomorrow would bring more than questions. It would bring challenges, tests, and dangers that would push both him and the princess beyond anything they had faced before. And he would be ready. The station felt different the next day. Lucas moved through the corridors with sharper attention, sensing that the previous night's incident was not a single threat. Something was brewing. The intruder they had captured had been quiet, barely speaking, but his presence was enough to make Lucas realize that others might still be hiding. Alira watched him closely as he patrolled, noticing the subtle tension in his movements. "Why do humans prepare so much for danger?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. "Other species act only when the threat is present. You seem to anticipate it always." Lucas stopped and looked at her, leaning against the corridor wall. "Because we survive that way. Preparation keeps us alive. Reaction alone is sometimes too late." She nodded slowly, studying him. "Perhaps that is why your species is unpredictable. We underestimate you, and that can be a mistake." He continued walking, but his mind was already scanning for anomalies. Every door, every corner, every flickering light was under scrutiny. The station was supposed to be secure, but the shadows from the previous night had left a mark on him. Hours passed without incident. Lucas returned to Alira, who was seated near a large observation window, staring at the stars beyond the station. She had a calmness about her, yet there was an intensity in her gaze, as if she could see things humans could not. "You were born to endure," she said suddenly, almost as if reading his thoughts. "I see it now. Even after the struggle yesterday, you remain focused. Many of my people would have collapsed under such stress." Lucas smiled faintly. "We endure because we must. And sometimes we endure because someone depends on us. Right now, that is you." She considered this for a moment, then rose and approached him. "Your species is unusual, fragile yet stubborn, weak yet capable of great strength when needed. I wonder what happens when humans face creatures stronger than themselves." Lucas glanced at her. "We adapt, we fight, we find ways to survive even when the odds are against us. It is not always clean or easy, but it works." She tilted her head, intrigued. "I would like to see that, not in a classroom, not in stories, in action." He raised an eyebrow. "Action can be dangerous. This station is not as peaceful as it seems. I cannot control everything." "Perhaps you will control enough," she said softly. Her eyes held a weight that made Lucas feel responsible beyond what he had imagined. She trusted him in ways that no human had before, and that trust was heavier than any weapon, any threat. As the artificial night approached, Lucas made his rounds. He checked each corridor, each restricted zone, and each observation deck. He noticed again the small shadows moving where no one should be. This time he caught movement near the docking bay. He approached silently, weapon ready. The shadows coalesced into two figures, humanoid but alien, carrying strange devices that pulsed with energy. Lucas's heart pounded. These were not ordinary intruders. These were trained attackers, probably sent to eliminate the princess. He moved swiftly, staying in the shadows, observing their patterns. The attackers did not seem aware of him yet, and he had the advantage of surprise. He reached for the communication device on his belt. "Alira, stay in your quarters. Do not leave the platform." "Remain safe," he whispered. "I will not interfere," she replied softly. "But I want to observe. You will teach me courage in the way humans do. I want to understand." Lucas clenched his jaw. It was risky. She could be in danger if the attackers discovered her presence. But she had made her choice. He could only protect her while allowing her presence nearby. He moved quickly, intercepting one of the attackers in a narrow corridor. The alien spun, device raised, but Lucas tackled it to the ground, using leverage and brute force. The device clattered away, sparking faintly against the metal floor. The attacker hissed and lunged again, but Lucas blocked, countered, and subdued him. The fight was short, sharp, and exhausting. Before he could catch his breath, the second attacker appeared. Lucas barely had time to react, ducking under a sudden energy strike. He rolled to the side, grabbing the alien and pinning it to the floor. The struggle was intense, testing his strength, endurance, and quick thinking. Through it all, Lucas kept in mind Alira's safety. He realized that protecting her was not just about holding a weapon or following protocol. It was about predicting danger, reacting faster than instinct, and staying calm when every part of him wanted to panic. Finally, he subdued the second attacker. Both aliens were restrained and secured by the station's security crew, who arrived moments later. Lucas stood, breathing heavily, sweat running down his face. He felt a strange mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. He had faced real danger and survived. More importantly, Alira was safe. He returned to her quarters, expecting her to be anxious or fearful. Instead, she was calm, seated at the observation window, watching the stars. She turned her golden eyes toward him as he entered. "You handled that well," she said simply. "You fought with skill, endurance, and focus. This is what I wanted to see. This is what makes humans remarkable." Lucas lowered himself onto the chair near her. "It is not remarkable. It is what humans do. We endure, we protect, and we fight when needed. You just witnessed it." She smiled faintly, a soft expression that seemed almost human. "You are more than a guard, Lucas Hale. You are a protector, a teacher, and perhaps a friend. I trust you, and that trust will carry more weight than any weapon in the galaxy." He felt a strange warmth at her words. Friendship from an alien princess was unusual, and trust so deep was even rarer. He realized that this mission had changed from a simple assignment to a bond neither of them could have predicted. Hours passed in quiet observation. Alira asked questions, not about the battle, but about Lucas himself, about human life, about Earth. She seemed fascinated by the idea that humans endured not just physical challenges, but emotional and moral ones as well. Lucas answered simply, honestly, without embellishment. He realized she was learning not just about human strength, but about human resilience and values. The night deepened. Lucas set up his watch near her platform, remaining alert for any further threats. Alira lay down but remained near him, her presence a constant reminder of why he endured. He listened to the hum of the station, to the faint echoes of distant corridors, to every subtle sound. Then she spoke softly, almost a whisper. "Humans can face danger with courage. I see now that your species is not as fragile as we believed. You are strong in ways we do not understand. Perhaps the galaxy has misjudged you." Lucas nodded slowly. "Strength is not always about weapons or size. Sometimes it is about will, endurance, and caring for others. That is what makes humans dangerous to those who underestimate them." She looked at him thoughtfully. "And you have all of these qualities. That is why I trust you. That is why I feel safe beside you. You are not just my guard. You are my protector in the truest sense." Lucas felt the weight of her words. He realized that protecting her was no longer just a job. It was a responsibility he had chosen willingly. It was a bond, a test of endurance, and a lesson in trust. He understood that the dangers ahead would be greater, but he also knew that together they could face them. The night continued, quiet and tense. Lucas remained vigilant, watching every shadow, listening for every sound. Alira slept lightly, trusting him completely. He felt a mix of pride and responsibility, knowing that this trust was rare, precious, and potentially life-saving. As the artificial dawn approached, Lucas reflected on the events of the day. He had faced danger, protected the princess, and learned more about alien perceptions of humanity. He realized that his mission was evolving. It was no longer a routine guard assignment. It was a test of endurance, courage, and understanding. And he knew that more challenges awaited. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers unseen and enemies unknown. But Lucas Hale was ready. He would endure, protect, and face every threat. He would teach the princess what it meant to trust, to survive, and to fight. And he would do so without hesitation, without fear, and without faltering. For in the quiet, dimly lit corridors of the station, a bond had formed. A human and an alien princess, united by trust, by danger, and by the unspoken understanding that survival was not just about strength, but about courage, endurance, and the will to protect those who mattered most. The station remained quiet for now, but Lucas knew it was only a matter of time before new threats arrived. He would be ready. And Alira, the alien princess, would learn that humans were capable of far more than anyone in the galaxy, had believed the station was quieter than usual that morning. But Lucas felt the tension lingering in the air. The previous attacks had made him alert, and nothing about the place felt safe anymore. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every distant sound could be a threat. He moved carefully, walking the corridors, scanning the empty hallways and checking the cameras. Nothing appeared unusual, but instinct told him the danger was not gone. Alira was awake, seated near the observation window, looking at the stars. She seemed calm, but Lucas could see the curiosity and vigilance in her eyes. She had watched him fight the intruders before, and he knew she was learning from him. Not just about human strength, but about human courage and determination. Humans endure much, she said quietly, almost to herself. Even when they are tired, afraid, or uncertain, they continue. It is admirable. Lucas approached, adjusting his uniform. We endure because we have to. Sometimes it is instinct. Sometimes it is responsibility. Sometimes it is for someone else. She looked at him, golden eyes studying him closely. I see now, it is not just about strength. It is about will, about protecting others, about caring enough to fight when it would be easier to flee. He nodded. Exactly, and that is what I do. Protecting you is my duty, but also my choice. I choose to endure because your safety matters. Alira's gaze softened. She did not speak for a long moment, only watched him. Lucas felt the weight of her trust, the unspoken understanding that she relied on him completely. It was a heavy responsibility, heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. The first alert came in the late afternoon. The station's security system picked up unauthorized movement near the engineering bay. Lucas moved instantly, checking his weapon and heading toward the location. The corridors were empty, the lights flickering slightly. He felt the familiar tension in his chest, the adrenaline that sharpened his senses. As he approached the engineering bay, he saw movement out of the corner of his eye. Two figures were moving quickly, carrying strange devices. Lucas crouched behind a corner, observing them. These attackers were faster and more skilled than the previous intruders. They moved with precision, clearly trained for stealth and sabotage. He reached for his communicator. Alira, stay in your quarters. Remain on the platform. Do not move, he said quietly. I will stay, she replied softly, but I want to observe. I want to see how humans react under real danger. Lucas took a deep breath and stepped into the corridor. The attackers froze when they noticed him, but it was too late. He lunged forward, tackling one to the ground. The struggle was intense, the alien hissing and thrashing, but Lucas held firm, using his weight and leverage to control it. The second attacker struck from the side, energy pulsing from a device aimed at Lucas. He dodged quickly, rolling to the side and countered with a strong grip, knocking the alien off balance. The fight was fast, brutal, and exhausting. Lucas had to rely on every skill he had learned, every reflex and every ounce of endurance. He restrained the second attacker just as the station's security crew arrived. They secured the intruders, but Lucas was left breathing heavily, muscles aching, sweat dripping from his face. He realized how close they had come to danger, how easily the intruders could have reached the princess if he had been a moment slower. He returned to Alira, who was waiting calmly near the observation window. Her expression was serene, but her golden eyes were filled with curiosity and respect. "You did well," she said simply. "You did not hesitate, you did not falter. You protected me and you endured. This is remarkable." Lucas lowered himself onto the chair near her. "It is what humans do. We endure, we protect, and we fight when needed. That is how we survive." She watched him quietly for a long moment, then spoke. "I am beginning to understand humanity. I see now that your strength is not in weapons, not in size, but in will, endurance, and loyalty. Humans are more capable than we imagined." Lucas felt a small sense of pride, though he reminded himself that pride could be dangerous in situations like this. The mission was not over and threats could return at any moment. He could only stay vigilant and protect her. Hours passed in quiet observation. Alira asked questions, not about the battle, but about life on Earth, about human experiences, about the choices that shaped him. Lucas answered simply, honestly, and clearly. She listened intently, absorbing not just his words but his presence, his calm focus, his willingness to endure danger without hesitation. As night fell again, Lucas set up his watch near the platform. Alira lay down, her trust in him complete. He listened to the faint hum of the station, every echo of the corridors, every subtle sound that could signal danger. He knew that the galaxy was full of threats, that enemies could come from anywhere, but he was ready. He would endure, protect, and survive. Then a new alert came. This time, it was from the outer docking bay. Sensors detected movement approaching the station from outside, a small vessel maneuvering stealthily. Lucas knew immediately that this was not a routine inspection. The intruders were returning, and they were more determined than before. He moved quickly, checking the corridors and preparing defenses. The docking bay was a large open space, illuminated by dim lights and the stars beyond the transparent walls. He could see the small ship approaching, and he realized that it was carrying multiple attackers. He communicated with the station's security team. "Prepare for intrusion. Multiple hostiles incoming. Protect the princess at all costs." The security crew responded with efficiency, but Lucas knew that this battle would rely on more than just their skills. It would rely on human ingenuity, courage, and endurance. He braced himself, focusing on the task ahead. The attackers breached the docking bay, moving quickly and strategically. Lucas engaged them immediately, using a combination of combat training, quick thinking, and endurance. He blocked attacks, countered strikes, and protected the station's defenses. The struggle was intense, and the attackers were relentless. During the fight, he noticed that Alira was observing from a secure platform, her eyes wide with interest and respect. She had seen humans endure danger, but seeing Lucas in action, unyielding and focused, gave her a new understanding of human courage. One of the attackers aimed a device directly at Alira's platform. Lucas reacted instinctively, leaping forward and deflecting the energy blast with his body. He felt the heat of the attack, but he held firm, shielding her from harm. She gasped, then watched him closely as he continued to engage the attackers. She realized that human endurance was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and moral. Lucas could face danger, pain, and fear, and still protect others. This was what made humans remarkable in ways that her species could not always understand. After a prolonged struggle, Lucas and the station's security team subdued the attackers. The docking bay was secured, the intruders restrained, and the princess safe. Lucas breathed heavily, muscles aching, sweat covering him, but he felt a sense of accomplishment. He had faced real danger, protected the princess, and endured beyond what he thought possible. He returned to Alira, who was waiting calmly, her golden eyes filled with admiration. "You are more than a guard," she said softly. "You are a protector, a teacher, and perhaps a friend. Your courage, endurance, and focus are remarkable. I understand now why humans can survive where others would fail." Lucas nodded, still catching his breath. "It is what humans do. We endure, we protect, and we fight when needed. I have chosen to protect you because it is my duty and my choice. That is enough reason to endure." She watched him for a long moment, then reached out and lightly touched his arm. It was a gesture of trust and recognition, not intimacy, but it carried meaning. Lucas felt the weight of her trust, deeper than any physical burden. He realized that protecting her was no longer just a mission. It was a bond, a responsibility, and a lesson in endurance, courage, and trust. As the artificial night returned, Lucas remained vigilant, watching every shadow, listening for every faint sound. Elira slept lightly nearby, trusting him completely. He knew that this mission was testing him in ways beyond physical skill. It was testing his mind, his endurance, his patience, and his ability to protect someone who depended entirely on him. He reflected on the day's events. The threats were real, the danger had been immediate, and he had faced it without faltering. He understood now that human strength was not measured by weapons or size, but by the will to endure, the courage to act, and the determination to protect others no matter the cost. And he knew that more challenges awaited. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but Lucas Hale was ready. He would endure, protect, and survive. He would teach the princess the meaning of human courage, and he would do so without hesitation, fear, or faltering. The bond between them had grown stronger. Trust had been forged in danger. Respect had been earned through action. And in the quiet, dimly lit corridors of the station, Lucas understood something profound. Humans did not need to be the strongest in the galaxy to make a difference. They only needed the courage to endure, the will to protect, and the heart to act. The station was quiet now, but Lucas knew that it would not stay that way. Threats would return, danger would rise, and the galaxy would test them again. But he was ready. And the princess beside him would learn, as she had begun to, that humans could survive, endure, and protect in ways that no one had expected. The station felt tense that morning. Lucas moved through the corridors with careful steps, every sense alert. The previous days had shown him that the threats were not gone. The attackers had tested the station's security before, and they could return at any moment. He checked his weapon, adjusted his uniform, and reviewed the protocols in his mind. Every movement had to be precise, every decision quick. Elira was awake, seated near the observation window. She watched him quietly, golden eyes following his every move. She had learned much about human endurance over the past days. She had seen him fight, protect, and endure exhaustion without complaint. She had begun to understand the courage that humans carried inside them, a courage that did not rely on strength alone but on willpower, focus, and loyalty. "Today feels different," she said softly. "I sense a great danger is coming." Lucas nodded slowly. "I feel it too. The attackers are persistent. They will not stop until they reach you. We have to be ready." She rose and moved closer, studying him. "Humans act quickly and decisively. I have seen it. I will stay near you as before. I want to witness your courage again." Lucas felt the weight of responsibility deepen. He had grown used to having her nearby, but now the stakes were higher. This was not a drill, not a test. This was real danger, and her life depended entirely on his actions. He clenched his jaw and nodded. "We face it together. I will protect you." The station alarm sounded suddenly, a sharp wail that echoed through the corridors. Lucas reacted instantly, rushing toward the source. The docking bay sensors detected multiple ships approaching, moving with stealth and precision. These attackers were better prepared, more aggressive, and clearly determined to reach the princess. He moved swiftly, checking every corridor, securing entrances, and coordinating with the station's security team. Prepare for combat. Multiple intruders incoming. Protect the princess at all costs, he ordered through the communicator. The attackers breached the outer doors almost immediately. Lucas engaged them at once, using his training and quick thinking. He dodged energy strikes, blocked attacks, and countered with strength and skill. The fight was intense, the attackers relentless. He could feel his muscles burning, his breath coming in sharp gasps, but he stayed focused. He could not falter. Alira watched from her secure platform, her gaze fixed on him. She had never seen humans endure such danger without hesitation. She understood now that their strength was not in physical power alone, but in determination, courage, and the will to protect those who mattered most. One of the attackers aimed a device directly at Alira's platform. Lucas reacted instantly, leaping forward and deflecting the energy blast with his body. He felt the heat, the shock, but he held firm. The device sparked and fell harmlessly to the floor. Alira's eyes widened, but she did not panic. She trusted him completely. He fought tirelessly, moving through the docking bay, blocking attacks and restraining intruders. Every step, every movement was calculated. He thought of the princess, of her trust, of the bond they had formed. That thought gave him strength beyond fatigue. He could endure because someone's life depended on him. Finally, after what felt like hours, the attackers were subdued. The station's security crew secured the intruders and the docking bay was safe. Lucas stood, breathing heavily, muscles trembling, sweat covering his face. He looked toward Alira, who was still calm, but her eyes were filled with admiration and understanding. "You have done it," she said quietly. "You protected me and you endured. This is human courage. Remarkable." Lucas lowered himself onto the chair near her platform. "It is not remarkable. It is what humans do. We endure, we protect, and we fight when needed. I protected you because it was my duty and my choice. That is enough reason to endure." She studied him for a long moment. "I have learned much from you, Lucas Hale. Humans are capable of more than I imagined. You endure danger, fatigue, and fear, and yet you continue to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is the strength of your species." He nodded slowly, still catching his breath. "We survive because we care. We endure because someone depends on us. And sometimes we fight because it is the right thing to do. Protecting you is that for me." She reached out her hand, lightly touching his arm. It was a gesture of trust and recognition, not intimacy, but it carried immense meaning. Lucas felt the weight of her trust, deeper than any physical burden. He realized that this mission had evolved from a simple assignment into a bond of respect, loyalty, and courage. Hours passed quietly. The station was secure for now, but Lucas knew that the galaxy was full of threats. Enemies could come from anywhere at any time. But he also knew that human courage and endurance were formidable. He had faced real danger, protected the princess, and survived. And he had done so not because of weapons or technology, but because of willpower and determination. Alira watched him as he maintained his watch, observing every corner, listening for every faint sound. She understood now what humans could endure, what they could accomplish when their focus and loyalty were absolute. She had seen it firsthand. She had witnessed courage, endurance, and protection in its purest form. "I will remember this," she said softly. "Not just the danger, not just the battle, but the endurance, the courage, the will. Humans are extraordinary." Lucas looked at her, a faint smile on his face despite exhaustion. "It is what we do, it is who we are, and it is why we survive." The night continued, quiet and tense. Lucas remained vigilant, ensuring the station was secure. Alira rested nearby, trusting him completely. He understood the weight of that trust, the responsibility it carried. He had faced multiple threats, endured exhaustion, and protected her life. But he had also learned something profound about himself and humanity. Endurance, courage, and the will to protect were the true measures of strength. As the artificial dawn approached, Lucas reflected on the events of the past days. The intruders had tested him, challenged him, and pushed him to his limits, yet he had endured. He had protected the princess, and in doing so had demonstrated the remarkable qualities of humanity. Illyra rose and approached him. "You are more than a guard, Lucas Hale. You are a protector, a teacher, and a friend. The galaxy will learn to respect humans because of your courage and endurance." He nodded, humbled by her words. "I only did what I had to do. Protecting you was my choice, and that choice gave me strength to endure. It is enough for me that you are safe." She smiled faintly. "Your strength is not in your body, but in your heart and mind. You have taught me what it means to trust, to endure, and to survive. Humans are not weak. Humans are remarkable." Lucas felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced danger, protected the princess, and survived. He had endured beyond what he thought possible, and he had done it not just with skill, but with courage, determination, and loyalty. The station remained quiet, the intruders secured, and the princess safe. Lucas knew that challenges would come again, that the galaxy would continue to test them. But he also knew that human courage and endurance were stronger than anyone had believed. He had proven it, and Illyra had witnessed it. "Thank you," she said softly. "For enduring, for protecting, for showing me what humans are truly capable of." Lucas smiled faintly. "You do not need to thank me. It is what humans do. We endure, we protect, and we survive. And I will continue to do so as long as it is needed." She looked at him, golden eyes filled with respect and understanding. "Then the galaxy should take note. Humans are not weak. Humans endure, and they protect with courage beyond measure. I will ensure others know this." He felt a small sense of pride, though he kept it quiet. The mission was complete, the princess was safe, and humanity had proven its worth. He had endured, protected, and survived. He had shown that courage and loyalty could overcome any threat. The stars outside the station glimmered softly. Lucas and Illyra stood together, not as guard and princess alone, but as two beings who had learned from each other, who had faced danger together, and who had built a bond of trust, courage, and understanding. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but Lucas Hale knew one truth: humans did not need to be the strongest in the universe to make a difference. They only needed the courage to endure, the will to protect, and the heart to act. And in that quiet moment, as the station hummed softly around them, Lucas realized that they had changed each other forever. The princess had learned what it meant to trust, to observe true human courage, and to respect endurance. And he had discovered that protecting someone could show the best of humanity, not through words or weapons, but through action, determination, and unwavering loyalty. The mission had ended, the danger had passed, and the galaxy had witnessed the quiet power of humanity through the actions of a single guard and the trust of an alien princess. Lucas Hale had endured, protected, and survived. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humans were far stronger than anyone had imagined. The station was calm now. Lucas kept his watch for a few more hours, ensuring that the princess remained safe. Illyra rested, her trust complete, her understanding of humans deeper than ever. Together, they had faced danger, endured challenges, and survived. And as dawn spread softly across the stars, Lucas understood something simple and profound. Humanity's strength was not measured in weapons, numbers, or size. It was measured in endurance, courage, and the will to protect. And that strength had carried them through danger, secured the life of a princess, and shown the galaxy the quiet but unshakable power of humans.